everybody. Hope you're having a great time so far at 360 iDev. You saw Sarisha's great keynote earlier today. You're watching some great talks. Hopefully you're enjoying yourself. How many people here for the first time? First time 360 people. I love that about this conference. This is my 7th year in a row that I've been to 360 iDev, my 6th year as a speaker. And every time I come here, I see a great new crowd and I see some old faces that I love. And that's really the whole point of these kinds of things, is networking with other people, as we've been talking about a bit today. So today I'm going to be talking to you a little bit about the science of motivation and the practice of trying to get a little bit better at persuasion. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Joe Cieplinski, and for lack of a better term, I make things. That's sort of what I've landed on as my kind of what I do for a living. These are some of the apps that I've been privileged to be part of. A couple of them I built on my own. Over there on the top left is Finn, which is a timer that I built for performance. I'm actually using it right now to time myself. The first app I built actually is on the right top there, and it's called XY for designers. It's an aspect ratio calculator, one of those really simple my app on apps. Then on the bottom there, Setlist and Telecom Plus are maybe the apps that people would know me for best. The most successful projects I've been a part of. I built those in collaboration with some friends of mine at Bach Brain Interactive. I help design those and work on those as well. So they've been doing great for us. I also have a podcast called Release Notes. It comes out every Monday. We just published this morning episode 223. So we're in our 5th year now of weekly podcasting, which is insane when I think about it. But we've been doing this for quite a long time. And the focus of this podcast is about business. And that's really one of my passion areas. So when I got together with Charles Perry to start making this, we decided that was going to be the topic, and it's been going strong. So much so that we actually built a community around it. We have a conference that goes on every October this year in Chicago. It's going to be a lot of fun. So we're looking forward to that as well. So if you want to check that out, the podcast, you can find it on any podcatcher of choice, just at Release Notes. Now, I said earlier that I make things, and that kind of sounds like a pretentious nonsense kind of way of describing yourself, but it's becoming true for me. I don't have a good way to describe what I do. I started my tech career in design. I primarily considered myself a designer for the longest time. That's basically what I did. But the more I've gotten into building some of my own apps and working with other people, I've been moving further and further into the code side of my life. And I'm starting to see that that's a whole other area of what I do. It's sometimes the way I make my money. And so just calling myself a designer doesn't really work for me anymore. And so neither one of these things would really describe what I do on a daily basis. Like many independent-minded people and independent creators, I kind of have to wear a lot of hats. I do a lot of different things. Anything from sales and marketing, to learning how to get better at networking, events like this, and all kinds of crazy stuff that goes around the app development world. If you work for a company in a specific role, you know that those other roles always get fulfilled by other people. When you're an indie, you kind of have to do all those things yourself. And so I'm constantly trying to educate myself. I'm trying to get better at these different aspects and all these different things. And one of the ways I do that, of course, is by reading. And earlier this year, I picked up this book by Daniel H. King. It's called Sell Is Human. And the subtitle is The Surprising Truth About Persuading, Convincing, and Influencing Others. So that sounds like a real marketing speak kind of book. Trust me, this is a really good one. This is one of the good ones. I spent a lot of time reading this early this year. And I was instantly inspired, and that's actually where everything about this talk kind of came from by reading this book. So I highly recommend it. If you like some of the stuff I talk about today, I would definitely dig into this because there's a lot of good detail in this book. So one of the things that Daniel King points out in the beginning of the text is that through several studies and surveys, he found that about 1 in every 9 people works in sales. Okay, that's actually making a living as a salesperson. Right? So think of someone whose job it is to get people to buy things. 1 out of every 9. That sounds a little high, isn't it? I mean, I always consider, I don't know that many salespeople myself, people who make a living that way. So I always consider it as 1 out of every 9. I didn't think we're that many people selling things. But if you think about it, I think about all the companies I worked for in my career, there were pretty big sales staffs, and all those people weren't doing things, right? So that's fairly interesting in and of itself that many people out there have a job selling. But the more interesting piece, and this is what Daniel King found, he started surveying these other 8 people. And what he found was that the other 8 were selling too. All right? There's no job on earth left in the modern 21st century that doesn't involve some sort of selling. All right, what do I mean by that? Well, think about every email that you write at work. Right? You're writing a request to your manager. Okay, I need to upgrade to the latest version of Sketch. I need budget for that. Can we do that? Right? Manager writes back, well, what's the benefits? What are the new features? Right? You have an analysis. You have to go right. You have to make that case. You have to sell it to your boss. Right? For those of you who are developers in the room, what is a pull request? It's a sales pitch. Right? Hey, I wrote this feature. I think this is the best way to do it. Can you please approve it and put it into your app? If you can't make that sale, if you can't convince the person on the other end that your way is better, it's not going into the app. Right? And designers have been going through this forever as well. Design review is a big part of the job. I go as far as to say that more than half of the job of design is selling. It's selling your decisions and your methodology to the client. It's pitching. You're constantly having to get in front of people and justify why you made the choices you made. Saw this cool app that Suresh built, okay, along with Ashley Nelson-Northey, two good friends of mine. This app is a giant sales pitch app, right? Hey, I want to go out for beers tonight. Who wants to join me? Or we're going to have karaoke tonight. Who wants to be there? Right? All of these little events, each one of these is a sales pitch. Okay? You might not think of it that way at the time you're writing it, but every tweet, everything you're doing, you're trying to motivate other people in some way, shape, or form to come around to your way of thinking. Okay? Parents know this all too well, right? You have to convince your kids to do their homework, read their vegetables, sales pitch. I had to teach my cat not to scratch the furniture, sales pitch. Right? Now, this isn't what we normally think of as selling, right? This is what Daniel Pink referred to as non-sales selling. This is the art of persuading or moving other people, even though that's not specifically your job. It's not something that you necessarily do and make money at it, but it is nevertheless something that we do all the time. And so when he was surveying all these people in all these different office environments, every one of them came back and said, not only are they doing this regularly, but they're doing it several times a day, and it's a huge time suck for them. Right? They were spending more time in their email trying to convince other people of stuff than they were actually doing the thing that they think that they were hired to do. And so it's pretty wild to think that this is such a big part of all of our lives, and yet at the same time, most of us are absolutely terrible at it. How many people in here feel like they're super confident and really good at making people do what they want all the time? Not me. Right? So you got all good. All right, you've been working on this, right? We're terrible at this for the most part. A lot of people in the tech community, whenever I talk to designers and developers, we all feel the same way about this, right? I just can't get through it. I went into development because I didn't want to do this people stuff, right? And I started to think about, why is that? Why do we suck at this? Why do we think we suck at this, right? And I came up with a couple of reasons. First off, we don't think it's our job. We think the salesperson is something, that's something that happens over in that other department. They're the enemy over there who just keep making me do things differently than I'd like to, right? It's not my job, so I don't have to do it. Well, obviously, that's not going to get you very far, but that is how a lot of us think, right? The other thing is that a lot of us feel like it's some sort of magic trick, that certain people are born with the ability to sell, and if you don't have it, you don't have it. And therefore, you're never going to have it, so why bother? That's an easy cop-out, right? A lot of us do that. We do that with a lot of things in general, right? I'm no good at sports, not because I can't be good at sports, because I never tried. I sucked at it as a kid, and I never bothered getting better. I can get by without having a good tennis stroke, okay? But I'm not going to get away with not selling for very long. And the last one, I think, is very important, and that's people in our community especially think that sales is somehow immoral. That it's some kind of slimy thing that only guys like this do. Okay, but nobody wants to be that guy. I don't think that guy wants to be that guy. Right? This is what we think of as a salesperson. Daniel Pink actually points this out in his book, that this is the stereotype of what a salesperson is, but this is not what a modern day salesperson looks like at all. Not anyone who's successful in this day and age. The world of sales has changed quite a bit. And so this image in our minds of what sales is outdated, frankly, and we need to change it. Okay, the act of wanting to get people to do things, right, to motivate other people, is not immoral. It's how the world works. It's how we got here. We would be in a building right now. We wouldn't have computers. We would have gotten to the moon. All those things required people to motivate others to move in a certain direction. Okay? So you cannot escape your fate. You must get better at sales, or you'll die. Your career will slip inside. Okay, you'll spend all of your time complaining about why nobody wants to listen to me, and you, in meantime, we'll never get any better at it. And that's not a really great way to go through your career. And I'm serious about this. You're not going to get great at code in any kind of team that you're working on if you can't get your ideas into the code base. Right? If you can't get your design ideas into the app. So, here's what I want to cover today. A couple of main points here. First, I want to talk about getting over your fear of rejection, which is a big part of why we suck at this and why we're not getting better. After we get over our fear, we're talking about practicing and how we can effectively practice pitching more often. Then we're going to talk about getting the higher success rate, because yeah, it's one thing to practice, but it's another thing to actually get to yes a little more often. Notice I don't say yes all the time. We'll talk about that in a bit. A big part about being your success rate is going to be something, again, that Sarush mentioned earlier this morning, which is empathy, right, and moving into other people's shoes. So we're going to talk about that as well. Then following up, which is extremely important, following through with your sale, showing your dedication is really important. And lastly, I want to talk a little bit about the skill sets that good salespeople have, so that we can identify those things like we would do in any other science class, right? Identify those skills and then try to start emulating them and working on them for ourselves, because they really are just the skill set that anyone can pick up. All right, so how do we get over fear? How many people in here like being rejected? Like hearing the word no whenever you ask for me, right? Right, okay, great, I love that. I was actually expecting a few of you to be like, yeah, I would have to accuse you of lying, but it's true. None of us like being rejected. It feels horrible to have someone say no, that someone say your idea sucks. Even if they're not saying it that way, if they're being polite about it, it still feels bad. Right? And so we don't want that feeling, and therefore we run away from it. This is something all human beings do. We run away from the things that scare us. And so in order to not be afraid of this no that we're going to hear, I want to kind of help you get over that fear right now, okay? And so I'm going to do that by explaining to you that you're already at no. Think of something you want someone to do right now, like someone you hope will go to lunch with you right now, right? You haven't asked them yet, okay? Right now the answer is no, because you haven't asked them. If you don't ask them, the answer is definitely going to be no, right? So you're already at no, so what are you afraid of, right? The worst thing that can happen is you stay at no. Right? And actually, hearing no is not the most likely thing you're going to hear. If you send a lot of emails to people, and I love this the hard way, when I started the conference with Charles, we had this plan where we would split up the duties between the two of us. And one of the things that fell on me was I had to invite the speakers. We discussed which speakers we wanted to invite. We got a list. We had 10 slots. We got a list of like 15 people because we figured a few people would say yes. We ended up needing a lot more than those 15 in the end. But I had to actually compose these emails and write them and send them out. And it was really hard for me because I was so afraid they would write back to me and say, no, I can't do it. I don't want to do it. Right? Your conference sounds stupid. Right? These are people I didn't know really for the most part. I knew a few of them casually. But there were people I looked up to in the community. They were idols of mine. There were people I wanted on my stage. And so to hear a no from them was really scary. And so I did what I usually do. I overcompensated. I created this giant document, this PDF, and it's beautiful, and it's all the information you ever want to know as a speaker coming at my conference. Here is all the things we're going to provide for you. Here's what's expected of you. And here's how much fun you're going to have. Right? And I wrote that all up in this beautifully glossy PDF that I attached to a document, to an email. I wrote out a specific, very nice email, right, in fine detail for each individual, saying, this is why I think you would be a great fit for this conference. I had done a little bit of research about each one of them. And I crafted all that, and then I was still afraid to hit the send button because I was afraid of that no. And little did I realize that what was really going to end up happening, which was this. I was going to be, well, not standing by the phone, but standing by the inbox for the next 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks, right? After about 2 days, I had no responses. After about 4 days, I had 2 responses. After about 3 weeks, I had 5 or 6 responses. But there are certain people I emailed that just never got back to me. And I follow up and say, oh, well, I'm sorry, maybe you didn't see this, but we would love you to be here at this thing. And still heard nothing. Okay. I ended up having to invite 20, 30, 40 speakers to get to the 10 that we needed because a lot of people simply never responded. And I realized that, okay, so why am I afraid of no? No is not the worst thing that's going to happen. It's not even the most likely thing that's going to happen. The most likely thing is happening is that I'm going to hear nothing. Right? And that's kind of worse in some ways, right? But Why am I afraid of the rejection? As a matter of fact, after the third or fourth or fifth week, I was kind of hoping for the rejection. Right? At least then I could move on to someone else. Right? Hearing nothing was worse. So don't be afraid of no. Okay? There are a lot of reasons why, by the way, people don't get back to you. Okay? The human instinct is to be mad that they didn't get back to you and say, "Oh, this jerk, why do they think they're so special they don't have to write back to me?" But then you have to take a step back and say, "This was an unsolicited email written to a stranger asking them to do something which is kind of inconvenient. They have to go fly out to Indianapolis at the time and prepare a talk and do all this other stuff. Why would they respond to me? They don't know who I am, right? Maybe I ended up in their spam inbox. Maybe, who knows what happened? Maybe they had some tragedy happen in their lives the day I sent this and they just got lost in the shuffle." Right? When you send out an email like this that's unsolicited to another person, they don't owe you anything. I'm going to repeat that, right? This is very important. Other people don't owe you a response to your emails. The sooner you get that into your head, the less angry you're going to be when you send emails and don't get responses. They don't owe you that. You just move on to the next person. You do this enough, and believe me, it just gets to be like, okay, whatever. I'm sending it out, and if I hear nothing, I hear nothing. I know what to do. I move on to the next person. Okay? And look at your own inbox. I see people's phones all the time. 12,000, 14,000 unread emails. People suck at email. Right? They don't see half the emails in their inbox. So why, again, are you going to get upset? It's not personal. They didn't look at your request and say, like, "Oh, I don't like this person." They probably never saw your request. Look at your own inbox. How many people in here have responded to every email ever sent to them? Thank you. I rest my case. All right. So don't worry about that, okay? No is not the most likely response. You're already there, so don't fear it. Don't fear this rejection. I always like to put it in this term. If you don't ask, the answer is definitely no. If you do ask, the answer is probably no. And probably no is better than definitely no. Right? It's a step closer to yes. So send that email. Don't be afraid of the rejection. Because there's something even worse than getting rejection. There's something even worse than not getting a response. And that's that weird feeling of what if I had the guts to ask so-and-so, right? We all have that dream thing we want to have happen and we never ask for it. Then we're left all our lives wondering, I wonder if they would have said yes if I just had the guts to say, would you do this? What if is what you want to avoid. Okay, so we're sending our emails. We're going to get better at pitching because we're just going to start doing it. Right? After sending out Sentinel speaker invites, I got used to it. By the time I got to my third year this year of doing the conference, I just didn't care. I was just like, yeah, let's go for that person, whatever. I just wrote it up, sent it out, heard no, okay, no problem. Next person. You will get over it, believe me, over time. And so while you're pitching, though, you want to actually start practicing effectively. Musicians are very familiar with this. When you practice, if you just keep practicing your mistakes, you keep practicing it the wrong way, you're not learning anything. You're just going to get better at sight, right? So you don't want to do that. What you want to do is start analyzing your pitches and what works and what doesn't work. When you get no response, think to yourself, why did I get no response? That's tough because you don't have a lot of empirical evidence. You don't know exactly why the other person didn't respond. But if you're not getting a lot of responses, maybe it's something as simple as your subject line in your email is just too vague or didn't really hold the person in an effective way. Right? When you get a no response, oftentimes you'll be lucky enough and the person will tell you exactly why they said no. This sounds like too much work, or this is not part of our philosophy, or if you read anything about me, you know I hate cats, so I'm not going to come to your house and cat sit for you. Right? Oops, I guess I better look that up next time. Learn something from your mistakes, and learn from the actual yeses as well. Whenever I send out emails to sponsors, trying to get sponsors to book the podcast or the conference, I always try to look at the yeses and say, what did I do right? And oftentimes I won't get an answer to that right away, but I've gotten into the habit of just asking, hey, do you mind just telling me why you said yes to this? Right? Because I don't tell them, 15 other people said no, why did you go for this? What did I do for you that made this sound attractive? It's tough. It's not an exact science. Like I said, everybody's different. What works for one person won't necessarily work on another person. So it's a little squishy. Okay, it's not exactly ones and zeros, but it is something that you can analyze and get better at. And as you keep analyzing and get better at it, the thing that I keep coming back to, as far as what works for me best, is to remember, again, what I mentioned earlier, which is the concept of empathy. That you really need to analyze the way you're asking things. When I am writing an email, The habit, the normal habit you have is I need. And what the other person keeps hearing is he needs. And what you need to be doing when you're writing that email is thinking, what is the other person going to think about this? What are they going to respond to? What's in it for them? If you can't figure out what's in it for the other person, right, you're doing a code review and you know you're dealing with this person who time and time again likes something done in a very specific reactive way, and you've written it some other way, you're not going to pass that person, right? Not let them fight. So learn what they like and learn how to get around it. Hey, I know you normally like it this way. I did it this way. Here's why I think that's better. Because now you're talking to another human being. You're not just saying, my way is best. This is the way it should be. This is what I want. Give me what I want. Right? That's not going to help. It's not going to work for most people. You really need to put yourself in the other person's shoes. I firmly believe this. Good business is when both parties walk away happy. I think a lot of business people in the modern world, the 21st century, have lost sight of this. Good business is, I come to you, we exchange whatever it is we're exchanging, we both walk away happy. That's good business. A lot of people think it's all about winning. How much can I put over on this person? How can I screw this person out of X, Y, and Z? It's pervasive in our culture. And it's not good for long-term business, especially with the people you work with in your companies that you have to deal with every day. If you're constantly winning, the other person's constantly losing. And eventually, they're going to get tired of losing. They're going to quit. They're going to start hating on you. They're going to start rejecting things for no reason other than they can't stand you. Because they're not getting anything out of this relationship. So when you're crafting your pitches, right, your emails, you have to think of yourself as a member of the audience. Don't read the email as if you're writing it. Read the email as if you're the other person reading it. And if you don't know that person, it's a little harder. But the more you get to know people, the more you know what motivates them. You know what they like to hear. And there's nothing wrong with making the other person know that you understand them, that you care a little bit about them and what they need. Okay, so we're pitching, we're getting better. The next step is to follow through. And this is one where I really suck. I have terrible follow through. I often will get a person this close to signing the deal, everything's ready, but they'll ask a question and then I won't get back to them for a week because I just overlooked it. Again, not looking at my inbox carefully enough. Or I want to craft the world's most perfect response. And so I say, I don't have time to do that right now, I'll do it tomorrow. And then the next day, the next day, and then 3 weeks go by and I'm like, oh man, now it's stupid, I'm going to respond. It just feels weird after 3 weeks, I'm just not going to respond at all. Right? So follow-up is extremely, extremely important though if you want to get to people motivated. So I was actually watching a talk a couple months ago at this meetup that I went to, this business networking meetup that I went to in New York. It was an Irish businessman who he was trying to start, had his business in Dublin, and he was trying to work his way into the United States. And so he came to New York, flew into New York, had a bunch of pitch meetings for a whole bunch of companies, and thought the pitches went incredibly well. They really liked what he was selling. Everything sounded great, felt great. Everything was like, wow, this is really going to work. He felt like he hit a home run. He got back on the plane, went back to Dublin. In 3 weeks, heard nothing. Nothing. Finally, he gets one of the people he pitched to on the phone, and he's like, I don't understand what happened. It felt like we were moving in a direction. What's going on? And the person told him, well, we weren't so sure about your commitment to moving to the United States. You don't have an office here in New York. Are you ready to hire people? Are you ready to do the proper paperwork? We're not 100% sure you're in all the way with this. And when you think about it, that makes a lot of sense, because you're asking the other person on the other end of any transaction to take a risk on you. And that burden is on you to show that that risk is worthwhile. As he put it really well, he said, you can't sell anything from the back of a rental car. They have to see that you're committed to the idea fully in order to be convinced that you're a risk worth taking. Even something as simple as exchanging business cards. Where you're at a conference, right? A lot of you probably are meeting new people and you do the whole thing where, oh, we had a great chat, we were on a business card. Right? Or this person does design, I'm a developer, I really need a designer every once in a while. That's great. Can I get your card? You get the card, and what do? If you're smart, you at least look at it a little bit and carefully. You don't just like shove it in your pocket. Have a little respect. Show the card, like take it seriously, put it in your pocket, right? But then what do most of us do? We go home, right? At the end of the conference, you take that whole pile of business cards you picked up, and you put them in a drawer, and you never look at them again, right? Think about how insane that is. how much work it is for a guy like me, who's pretty shy and pretty introverted, to actually show up at a networking event in the first place, like I'm exhausted just being here, right? Then I have to talk to somebody I don't know, and I have to strike up a conversation, right? And I have to get on their good graces enough for them to want to stay in contact with me, right? They're gesturing that they'd like me to stay in contact by handing me that card. I take the card, and then I do nothing with it. Right? Talk about a blown opportunity. So here's what's important. You get a card, this is what you do. You go home at the end of the conference, at the end of the night, or whenever. You take that stack of cards from all the people you got. You sit them down by your laptop, and you start typing emails. Hey, Gene, it was really nice meeting you at the conference this week. We had a really cool conversation about what's kind of, right? So if you ever want to chat sometime, let me know. Let's keep in touch. Boom. On to the next one, and the next one, and the next one. What does that do? It accomplishes two things. First off, that person has a much better chance of remembering you because you're going to be the one person out of the 1,500 they met that week to actually do that. You made a human connection more than once. So now they remember you as a person. Secondly, you're now in their inbox. You're in their email system. So when they're going, oh, that guy Joe, I think he was a designer at the 360 last year. I know it's February now, that was last August. I don't remember where I put this card. But if they start typing Joe in their email, my address is going to be the autocomplete because I sent them a note. Right? Their address is also going to be in my autocomplete if I'm trying to remember them. But most importantly, you made a human connection. You reminded the other person that there's more in it for them. Right? That's why you say keep in touch. I don't mean that like cynically. Like, let's just say that to make them feel like, oh, I'm a caring person. I mean to really be ready to be honest about it. I would like to keep in touch. Right? We had a good conversation. And you know what? This isn't always about what I need. This isn't always about what you need. Sometimes people just like to talk. Right? And you're a valuable asset. You're a friend. You're somebody who can, help me out or I can help out. Right? This is what community is all about. Treat people like human beings. Trust me, that one little tip alone will up your game so much. You have no idea how effective this is. Every time this happens, when I go to a conference and I go home and someone writes to me, I really, really take that to heart. I'm like, wow, this person actually bothered to write to me the next day. Huge, huge thing. I have a friend who's a salesperson who's actually a salesman for a living. Whenever he makes a big deal with a new company, he sends a giant box of pretzels to the company to say, hey, thanks for your business. Really appreciate it. Here's some pretzels for the office. Enjoy. Who wants to say no to the guy who sent pretzels last week? Right? Nobody. Not to mention, though, he's saying this is more to me than a business deal. This is more to me than money. I spent a little money on you because I just appreciate and value this relationship. Nothing wrong with that. Okay, so let's go over the steps that we've been talking about. As I said before, we start at no. Every transaction we have between another human being and ourselves starts with no. So that's what happens when we don't even ask the question. We're going to stay at no definitely. We're going nowhere. Okay? So we don't want that to happen. So then we say, okay, fine, Joe's right. I should at least ask. But we don't put any effort into it. We say to ourselves, oh, they're going to say no anyway, so blah, blah, blah. Would you like to do this? No big deal if you don't want to. I don't really care. And you send it off. Well, if you get a little closer, maybe that person is like, yeah, okay, whatever. If it's not that important to them. But you're not likely to get very far with that. What if you spent a little more time and you actually crafted a note and you actually checked your grammar and your spelling and you kind of made sure you crafted a pitch that was in normal sentences that made sense? Okay, we spent more than 30 seconds on this and it shows. Oh, you're getting a little closer now. Next step, you got to research. You got to know who you're asking. You got to know something about that person. Right? What do I know about them? How can I figure out what's going to be the more likely thing that they're after? And as you start researching and you gather more information about them, hopefully as you learn more about this person you're transacting with them pretty often, you're going to learn their motivations. You're going to learn what they really like, what they want out of life, and what they can get from you. The more you can give them, the more happy with you they're going to be, the more likely they're going to be to give you what you want. Okay, so keep going with that, working at their motivations. Of course, this is all tied into the empathy idea. And then finally, you need to follow through. And you follow up with them, and they have a question, or they're like, pretty close, but not quite ready. Maybe another 6 months, check in. I've had that happen all the time. Hey, you know what, this is not really a great time for you to check in 2 weeks. Did you actually check in 2 weeks? Because at that point, you have their permission to write them right back to you. Right? But a lot of times we don't. So follow through. Notice, after all this, we're not a yes. And this is the other important thing to understand about human beings. You can't make them do things. You can get them pretty close, but you can't get a yes 100% of the time. Sales is not like code that way. It doesn't always compile. If you got a 300 batting average, you're doing great in sales, right? If you get 7 no's for every 3 yeses, that's pretty darn good, right? It's a battle. It's a constant struggle. You're not always going to win. You're just going to get better. So you have to be able to handle that in your mind. For those of you out there who like to be right all the time, sorry. So what is it about people who are really good at this? What is it about great salespeople that people say, like, okay, can we analyze this? Can we break this down? Because I want to get better at this. I don't want to get necessarily, but I want to get better at motivating people. How do I do it? I started looking into this, and I started realizing pretty quickly that there are actual definable, quantifiable skills that human beings who are good at this have. And I could get to those skills myself if I worked at it enough. The first one is, salespeople have intelligence, but it's a very different kind of intelligence. I know a lot of A students, great math and science type people I went to college with who are absolutely terrible at motivating other people. I know a lot of C students who can get people to do anything they want. All right, it's a different kind of intelligence. It's not that they're not intelligent. It's that they understand human psychology. They understand motivation. They understand people. People is different. It's a different skill set. But it's still a skill set. It's something we can learn. Right? So look into that. You look into the kind of connections, the human intelligence, the ability to understand what other people are thinking and what other people are feeling. Right? There's a lot of emotion involved in sales as well. Salespeople, tend to have charm. They tend to have charisma. But that isn't something you're simply born with. Right? From my geek's perspective, sitting in the corner or looking at this super cool guy over there that's got everyone in the palm of his hand, I keep thinking, oh, they're lucky. They're good looking, everyone just flocks to them. They flock to them because these people understand how to make other people happy. They listen. They actually care what other people have to say. They're fun to be around. I hate to say it, but you have to actually be someone who makes other people want to be around you. That doesn't just come automatically. Right? You have to have a lot of stamina, I think, to be good at sales. You're going to get knocked down. Your ego is going to get blasted daily. It's going to happen often. People are going to say to you so often. And you got to be able to get back up on your feet and still have confidence. That's really hard. This is one of the hardest ones I think to learn. It's not something that I find easy at all. A lot of times, someone will reject me and I'll be dead for a week. I just can't take. I can't ask for someone to do the dishes with me. After that, it's just too much, right? You can get better at stamina, so it's something again to look into. And like all jazz musicians, or anybody who's really good at the art of improvisation, you have to learn listening skills. This one's really tricky, but I've noticed that salespeople are extremely good at hearing a response to what they say, processing that response, and changing your pitch immediately to match the other person's wavelength. That's a hard skill, but it is a skill you can learn. But it is something you can't learn in your room. It's not something you can learn on your laptop. Now you can if you're exchanging emails and texts really fast. But you really need to practice this with other people. And I know that scares a lot of us. It scares me. Right? But it is something you need to do. You need to get into the groove of working in a social construct. Right? A great jazz musician can only get so good in the practice room. He or she eventually has to get out onto the stage with other musicians and start improv. Okay? But like I said, all of these are skills that you can learn. None of these is something that you're born with innately and can't get any better at. Obviously, we all have things that we're slightly better, we have better aptitude towards. Some of us are better at sports, some of us are better at music than others, naturally. But none of us gets really good without practice. And none of those great salespeople that you look at and think they were born that way were born that way. They may have been born with a certain aptitude towards it, but then they kept working and they kept practicing. Given how important this is in your life, given what I said earlier about the fact that there's no way around having to be a salesperson in your job every day, you're going to be doing non-sales selling in some way, shape, or form every day of your lives. Doesn't it behoove you to start practicing this stuff? Doesn't it make sense? Right? And when you have that free moment, instead of dumping into that new API that you really want to dig into, maybe spend a little bit of time thinking about this. Maybe I should, read a few books. Maybe I should practice a little more of the types of skills that I'm going to need to get better. Because, no matter how good a programmer I am, again, if I'm in a box and I can't convince anyone to put my code into the app, I'm not getting it. So, again, I hope at the end of this, you at the very least understand the importance of this, and that you are a little bit at least inspired to want to get better at this. I know I have been in the last couple of years, and like I said, if you are interested in any of this stuff, I highly recommend that book by Daniel Pink, which is called To Sell is Human, because he goes into a lot of the cool scientific detail of how this stuff works and how modern sales works and how different it is from the way it used to be. So thank you very much for listening to my words. I appreciate it. If anyone wants to get in touch with me in the spirit of good networking, there is my information there. I'm on Twitter at Cieplinski. I know that's hard to spell. You can take a picture of it if you like. Josie.design is a little easier to spell. That's my web address. And my email is josie@mac.com. I am serious. You can just shoot me an email and say, hey, you want to chat, whatever. I'm up for it. Why not? Thank you. Question?
Joe, this is really awesome. I'm going to apply some of these techniques. When you talk to other people and you detect like sales techniques to you, do you get skeptical or do you notice that?
Good question, yeah. So the question is, do I notice when other people are pitching to me? Right? Do I see these techniques, recognize them, and say, oh, this guy's kind of slimy, that they're working this technique or that technique? I read about that last week. No, I'm actually kind of happy that I recognized it. I am surprised that I recognized it and go, ooh, that's good. That means I've got this, and I'm going to see how good they are at it, right? And see if I can learn something from the way they're pitching to me. As long as I know at the end of the day I'm being manipulated, it's okay, right? I can feel it. I go, oh, I'm going to give this person what they want. I know they're kind of pulling me one way, but I bet I can get them to do something for me as a result of going along with this. It's a transaction. It's a constant back and forth. But yeah. I mean, I've learned that. Early on, I was a little more like, allergic to the sales pitch. But even when I see spam emails now, I kind of like to read them and just to see what the latest game is. They're usually, most of them really suck. That's why most of them just go right to your spam. But some people are getting really good at pitching like blind, cold emails. And sometimes it's like, this really is something that's interesting to me or something I would want. So I go ahead and click on it. Question, Gene?
You said the worst thing is that if you don't ask, that is a no. So that's as bad as it could be. But honestly, for me and for I think a lot of people, it's like worse than not knowing if you got a no is getting a no that really made you feel bad. And I can recommend, I haven't done it, but there's a guy who just decided to get rejected as much as possible. It's a YouTube video, and I wish I could remember his name, but basically he went around every day and did something that people would have to say no to, like, hey, give me $100. But, or go, anyway, or can I come and play soccer for half an hour? That was one of those things. Anyway, I don't know, what's your feeling about dealing with that kind of, there's different qualities.
Yeah, that's a great point that Gene's making. That sometimes, for in some cases, the no does feel worse than not knowing. I can see especially for someone you really admire, that you really like, you don't want to make a fool of yourself in front of them. Then yeah, maybe in those cases the no does feel kind of worse. I'd say practice on people you don't care whether they say no a little more. And then those ones, like when you're asking your idol something, that's a little scarier. I made it a habit never to meet famous people. I go out of my way to not meet people I really look up to, like in the big end. I don't mean our little community famous. I mean like people who actually are like actors or people that I admire for whatever reason, musicians. I like to not meet them because I found that every time I do meet them, I never am happy with the outcome of the transaction. But maybe eventually I'll get over that by just practicing more on people where it's like, yeah, if this is a no, it's not the end of the world to me. But yeah, no, it's definitely, and if none of this stuff is easy. I don't want to imply in any way, shape, or form that just ask because no isn't so bad. No, it's gonna feel horrible. So getting past that is very difficult, and it takes a lot of practice. It took me, like I said, years. But I did get to the point where now, when I'm doing asking, for the conference, I'm asking for speakers. It's like I really will ask anyone at this point, and I get a lot of no's, but I'll ask really famous people, and well, why not? But yeah, it's a lot of work. It definitely takes time. You have questions, Rush?
Yeah, sort of building on Gene's question. It's we sometimes not about the fact that I will get a definite no, but the fact that our reputation would somehow be harmed. They're going to think less of me for pitching them and trying to get them or whatever. And you kind of answered this a second ago by saying sort of to pitch off people that you don't know and you don't really care about much. And that's good. I was going to say that the other Some ideas on that?
Yeah, great point. Your reputation is another thing that's on the line. And sometimes a no from someone, it's not just that they're saying no, it's that they're rejecting you as a person. And they're basically saying, wow, look, they're going to avoid you next time they see you at a party or whatever. Right. What I say is then that is all the more reason to really craft your pitch carefully. That you're not, don't let the big mistake, which is to say, they're going to say no anyway, so I'm just going to write a half-assed sloppy request. I think if you do an honest, best effort to research that other person, if at the end of the day, you ask someone to do something that they're absolutely opposed to doing, or it's against their religion or something, and you didn't, you could have easily found that information on Google and you didn't bother to look it up. That's on you. You did make a fool out of yourself, and you really, you got to be careful about that. But if you make an honest effort to offer something that is truly possibly valuable to the other person, and you do it with integrity, I don't think if the other person judges you at that point, that's on them, not you. Yeah.
So just point about that, I found that something that I've never personally done, but I've seen other people do, and I'm all of them, is when in the legal rejection, they also take that follow-through step, and they say, they come back and they say something like, I totally, respect where you're coming from, but thanks again for your time, for hearing me out, and I was really impressed with your blah, 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 we're trying to get their business to do something for you. And I worked in companies before where we interviewed someone, and unfortunately they weren't a good fit, and we got to, tell them that. And then you get an email that's like, hey, thanks again for this opportunity, and I just want to let you know that, I was impressed with your company's interview process for XYZ reason, and we were like, wow, that was so amazing. And so I think that is you being proactive about the rejection, and so that there isn't that harm to your reputation, or that what you said, that level of perception and public or something.
No, absolutely. What a great point. Yeah, that is, it's all part of that follow through, right? And I should have mentioned that actually. Part of following through is also following through when you get a no, and saying hey, I respect your decision. I still really, love what you do, and if we could ever work together in the future, blah, 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 whatever that is. Following up and saying, you know what, I'm not going to take this personally. I understand why you made this choice. It's unfortunate we can't work together, but I do that with clients all the time when I'm doing contracting work. When it doesn't work out for whatever reason, I'd like to follow up and say, but I really appreciate you taking the time, at least, to consider. And it's so impressive, and sometimes you'll actually turn the sale from that. In some cases, if you do the classy thing, in other words. Okay, so that's all the time we got, and people want to go to lunch, so feel free to go do that. And thanks. Have a great rest of the conference.